So we enter day 5 of the search for young Robert Manwill. Robert is still missing, but we remain hopeful for Robert's safe return.
FBI agents have joined the search for a missing Idaho boy. Authorities say 8-year-old Robert Manwill vanished just after leaving home.
As of this morning, we've invested over 5,000 man-hours of investigative time in locating Robert.
After a full day of searching the area around the little boy's apartment, authorities changed their approach, sending crews to back alleys and yards, even telling volunteers to look in trash cans.
So far, all search and rescue efforts have turned up nothing.
The investigation continues today, with investigators continuing the house-to-house contacts with neighbors in the area. Valuable information is coming from these interviews. A timeline for Robert's whereabouts is coming together.
Manwill says it's not like his son to just disappear.
Somebody's seen him, you know, please call the police. You know, all we want is our little boy back.
I'm Pat Alum for Nancy Grace, and another heartbreaker dealing with a child. I'm going to go to Mike Murad, reporter for CNN affiliate KBCI. Now, gets a little bit complicated because Robert, I understand, was visiting his mother who does not have custody.
That is correct. Here's what we've learned today, and again, bear with us because there have been a lot more questions than answers in this case. Here are the answers that I can give you. There has been some criminal history on the part of Melissa Jenkins. That is Robert's mother. Here's what we found in court documents today. In October of 2008, she was facing a felony charge of injury to a child. She initially pled that down in February of this year to a misdemeanor charge of injury to a child for fracturing her youngest child's skull, just a toddler. Now, as for the boyfriend of Melissa Jenkins, there was also some criminal history with him. His name is Daniel Ehrlich, and he's been convicted of burglary, battery, and possession of drug paraphernalia. We want to make crystal clear at this point, though, that authorities here in Boise have not made any connection between any past criminal behavior by Robert's mother or boyfriend and anything that's happening today with this case.
And ironically, I don't know if it's tragic, but also ironic, Greg Hahn from the Idaho Statesman, my understanding is that the biological father has already suffered a tragedy because a wife he had a long time ago stabbed one of his other children to death. Is that true?
That's exactly right, and it was one of those, oh my God moments, you know, take your glasses off and stare at the computer screen when you see it. Right. He was a soldier in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and his wife at the time, they were in their early 20s, and ended up pleading guilty to stabbing his 4-year-old in the chest.
Okay.
And she served 10 years in a federal prison.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And Patricia Saunders, you know, we have no evidence that any of these three people have anything to do with this child missing, but there is a culture of violence in this young man's life. How does that impact such a young, innocent child?
Well, when kids witness violence as a way of problem solving, then they're going to be drawn to adults who are violent. They also take a lot more risks than kids who are in more normal families, and we don't know what kind of associates the parents have.
Barbara from North Carolina. Good evening, Barbara. A question?
Good evening, and thank you for taking my call.
Pleasure.
I was calling to ask, what parent would let an 8-year-old child out at 9:30 at night? I mean, it's pitch black at nighttime, so why would this child be leaving the house by himself to go somewhere?
It's a great question, but Mark Kloss, I mean, we don't know all the facts. I mean, that's allegedly what time he was out, between 7 and 9 on the playground, but none of it's really, really certain at this point. You know, what do we look for in a case like this?
Well, first of all, remember, just a couple of weeks ago, we were dealing with the case of a little child named Lindsay Baum in Utah, I believe it was, who also was out at 9:30 at night, and it was determined through several sources that it was still light enough at that time for the child to be out. So I don't think that we should draw any conclusions that it was pitch black in Boise, Idaho, which is in sort of a northern latitude at that time of night. The problem that exists right now is that in order for law enforcement to solve this case, they have to eliminate certain individuals. And this is such a filthy family. There's so much crime involved in this family, cracking heads like walnuts, not being allowed to be with little kids, being married to somebody that stabbed your son. There's so much crime that it's going to be very difficult for law enforcement to eliminate these particular individuals so they can move on to the other possibilities.
Right,
also,
but let me
once
stop.
the public hears about this, they are going to be much less inclined to go out and try to help find the little boy for the simple reason that they probably will think that something happened within the family.
Now, listen, first of all, none of those people have been named as a suspect, and it's important to remember, this astounded me, although I remember in America's Most Wanted I did stories about, you know, pockets of areas where there's an inordinate number of sex offenders. 71 sex offenders, Susan Moss, in a 1 mile radius. I'd be looking at those guys too.
Oh, and they absolutely have. The cops have told us that each and every sex offender in the area has been spoken to, and the police are doing everything they can to investigate them, using whatever powers they have, especially the ones who are on probation, making them answer the tough questions, because they're going to leave no stone unturned to try to find this little boy.
Penny Douglas Fur, once again, we have a case where people are inclined to look at a family because of its history. Not fair?
Well, it's not fair, but the thing is, most of the time, it is someone in the family, and so because that's happened historically, that's the person they look at. But they need to get rid of these people as suspects and investigate them so that they can move on. And the people who are, you know, they're the sex addicts and the people in the area, once they are convicted of that and they have to register as a sex offender, they can go into all of their homes and they can search all of their homes. And I hope they've already done that, especially with 100 of them in this area.
Dr. Marty McCary, I mean 10 seconds for sure. What do we have to fear for this child's safety right now besides the obvious?
Well, the most common thing is that this child may be in hiding, and somebody who grows up in a family with so much history of abuse, this child is likely dealing with severe anxiety and fear.
Tonight, we're on the search for Nancy Grace's #1 fan. I'm much happier